Welcome to the battlefield tour of the battlefield of Brandy Station, the largest cavalry battle of the Civil War.
This is the graffiti house that has Civil War graffiti on the walls. This is considered part of the Brandy Station tour. Unfortunately, the graffiti house is only open on Saturdays after March 15th. So I'm just a few weeks early and it's not Saturday. Maybe I'll get in there some other time. This is Brandy Station. It doesn't look like much now, and I'm sure it's changed since the Civil War. But this is the location that gives the battlefield its name.
This is a drawing of Brandy Station during the Civil War. It looks quite different. The Battle of Brandy Station started on June 9, 1863 at 4:30 in the morning when Union cavalry crossed at Beverly's Ford. Later in the day, Union cavalry that had crossed at Kelly's Ford would surprise the Confederates when they arrived here at Brandy Station. Now let's go to the next stop on the battlefield tour.
I'm right next to the airport over there. On the Battle of Brandy Station Trail. This is stop number 4, Buford's Knoll and Cunningham Farm Trail. Right here you see it's an open field, but on these fields the battle took place. I'm on the trail, going to see what we find. Now I know my ancestor, Adolphus Pettipoul, in the 3rd Virginia Cavalry fought in this battle, and there's an entry into his diary about this battle. He said that many people got saber wounds during the battle. So let's march on this trail and see what we find. We walk down the trail and come across a marker, and this marker talks about the beginning of the battle, and let me explain what happened. In that direction over there, the 8th New York and the 8th Illinois Cavalries crossed the Rappahannock River at Beverly's Ford. The Confederate pickets engaged with the cavalry and withdrew. And just in front of us, the 6th Virginia and the 7th Virginia engaged with the 8th New York Cavalry. During the battle, the 8th New York collapsed and retreated. I've walked up a road and then up a path in the field, and I've come to another marker. Now this marker has a unique story to it, so let's get into it. Okay, looking at this marker, we see a map of what's in front of us. And what it's saying is that down this hill is a stone wall. And there are actually 2 stone walls, and a road goes in between them to St. James Church. Now, Buford was up here in command trying to coordinate the troops. And to your left, I'll move the camera over there, in this direction, the 2nd U.S., the 6th U.S., the 6th Pennsylvania, and the 8th Illinois were crossing the road, St. James Church Road, and they were coming into contact with the 2nd North Carolina, the 9th Virginia, the 10th Virginia, the 13th Virginia, and the 7th Virginia Cavalry. Now, what they probably didn't realize is now more in that direction, coming up the road much further near Welford's Ford Road and what's called Ruffin's Run, there are 3 more regiments of the Virginia Cavalry, the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd Virginia Cavalry, that were approaching the battle. My ancestor was in the 3rd Virginia Cavalry. We've come to the next marker on the trail. We came down a steep hill, and this is the house of John Wiltshire, who was the overseer for the Cunningham plantation here. This is not the main house. The main house is gone, and this is where the overseer lived. So let's get a little closer and walk around his house. I mean, for an overseer to build a 2-story house, that's pretty impressive. And this is pretty wild. Now, next to this house, it looks like it's a broken down barn. Interesting structure. We can walk up to it and take a look inside. It's leaning, and a lot of stones have fallen in. But you can see how it was constructed with mortise and tenon, because this board would have gone into the next board. And from here, we can get a back view of the overseer's house. This is impressive. I mean, that's as big as most residences on plantations. There are more outbuildings behind the place over there, and another one over here, and they're all falling down. Now, at one time, the marker said that they had over 60 slaves working on this plantation. Here's the other side of the house. It looks like they put gutters on the house to help preserve it, and they've got everything closed up, and it's not legal to enter the house, so we're not going to try. And as soon as the battle started, the owner of the plantation skedaddled and left the area. We've come to another marker just past the farm marker right here, and this explains the next stage of the battle. Now, the Union cavalry continues to pour across Beverly's Ford, which is behind us now, and right in front of us, you can see that low stone wall right there. Now, this is part of the most ferocious fighting during the battle. And we have units from the 7th Virginia, 2nd North Carolina, 10th Virginia, 13th Virginia, 9th Virginia, all fighting here. And on the Union side, the number of units is increasing. We've got the 6th U.S. Cavalry, the 2nd U.S. Cavalry, the 5th U.S. Cavalry, the 6th U.S. Cavalry, 2nd Massachusetts, 3rd Wisconsin, 8th Illinois, 6th New York, 17th Pennsylvania, 8th Illinois, 6th Pennsylvania, 6th U.S., 86th New York, and the 124th New York, all engaged here. And they fought back and forth between this stone wall and one further across the hill in front of us. So let's walk up from the marker to the stone wall. Now, when I heard or I saw on the marker there was a stone wall, I expected a big wall. But it's not a big wall. As you can see, this is a very small stone wall. And the stone wall is actually fallen apart here. And now they've put up a barbed wire fence along the wall. But you can see the ruins of the wall right along here. So this is their defensive position. And now beyond this stone wall is that field that leads to another stone wall. And the battle waged back and forth between the Union and Confederate cavalry to control the space between these two stone walls. In front of me is more of that stone wall. As you see, it's not very big. And it's a boundary line. It's a boundary line between two people's property. Here at the St. James site, we find a marker to Lee's Forgotten Warrior. I'm at the St. James Episcopal Church site, and here is the site of many of the initial skirmishes of the battle. The pickets were surprised and they withdrew to this area. They set up their guns, and there was a bit of fighting right in this area, right in front of us, because this knoll right here gave a clear view of the battlefield. And as you can see, as I walk up just a little further, how you can see down and across where the Federals were coming. And here's the marker on the road about the Episcopal Church. And if you go down this road, you can make it to the cemetery. But as it's very cold today, I'm not going to take the hike. All right, I'm standing at the marker at the St. James site. And when we look out here, this is where the Union cavalry was advancing across the field. And the 6th U.S. was at the spot, and the 6th Pennsylvania were right here in their charge. And when they moved across this field, they ended up taking a lot of fire from 16 cannons that Beckham had posted at the site that we were just at the top of the knoll. So they had a clear field of fire against them here. Now, as we look around this field right now, you see that little bridge over there, and the road just behind that very thin range of trees is where those cannons were. So they had a good view of the cavalry charging here, and they really decimated their ranks as they came across this field. In the end, the Confederate position up on the high ground just beyond that row of trees carried the day in this spot.
Now on to the next stop on the battlefield tour.
Station markers that talk about the show of force on Fleetwood Hill. And Fleetwood Hill is just ahead of us. And here, the 12th Virginia was the first to come in contact with the advancing Federal troops. One thing these markers talk about is that the Confederates did not expect to fight a battle on the day of the Battle of Brandy Station. They were completely surprised by the Federals crossing at Beverly Ford. This is Fleetwood Hill. This is where the major part of the first day's battle took place, as the Union tried to capture this hill. They chased the Confederates off one time. The Confederates recouped, came back, and realizing the importance of this site, Jeb Stuart ordered it to be taken. And there was fierce fighting on the slopes of this hill. I'm standing at the spot where the Confederate cavalry made their final charge on Fleetwood Hill and captured the heights here. Once they had captured it, then they brought their artillery up here, and that gave them a good view of the battlefield to fire against the Yankees. The view at the top of Fleetwood Hill is amazing. But you can really see the countryside from up here. Nothing much can be hidden from the view on this hill. This is amazing. how you could watch the battle, and this was why this is the focal point of a lot of the battle.
After the Union cavalry had failed in their attempt to capture Fleetwood Hill, they made the determination to withdraw from the battlefield, and the Battle of Brandy Station was over. During the battle, Federal casualties totaled 866, while Confederate casualties were reported at only 575. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this battlefield tour of the Battle of Brandy Station.